G'day guys, welcome to the Pumped On Property Show. You're sitting with Ben and Simon here today. How you doing, man?
Yeah, doing good today, brother. How about yourself?
Dude, I'm not as good as you are. Like, I had a bit of a rough night's sleep last night.
I woke up at 6:30 and see a text from you, and it's just like, it was like from 4 or 5 hours earlier. I'm like, oh no, you poor bloke. I hate those nights.
Just one of those nights. I had the kids started a new school, and I've got a little operation this week, and I don't know why. It was just one of those weird nights where I got a bit caught in my head. But all good, man. Like, you know, it's epic though. Like, still being able to come in and do this amazing work. Like, what I loved is I didn't sleep that well, and you slept well, and then you went for a surf and did some yoga and some meditation. I'm just like, it's just like yin and yang.
Yeah.
Like the different ways that you can live the same day.
It's so interesting, but I don't know, you've always been able to pull an ace out of your sleeve, eh? Like, I swear to God, you know, you'll have like rough day, you'll be sick, and you still just manage to pull it together somehow.
I remember getting some of my wisdom teeth pulled out, and I'm like, on the way out of the dentist, as I'm hopping in the car, I'm still doing strategy sessions and calls. Like, I just don't mind this stuff too much, but I am excited to bring this to you guys today. Like, our concept for this video is, you know, you could be listening to this at any age, but if you're in your 30s, which is the theme of today's potty, what we're trying to do is just help you sort of start to align things a little bit simpler, a little bit easier. We hope by the end of this, you've got some different ideas, and some of those ideas align with where you want to be.
Yeah, we work with a bunch of different demographics, a bunch of different people all the time. And there's sort of three groups in their 30s that we kind of work with. And, you know, that's sort of people that are in their 30s, that are single, that are looking to buy their first property. All of these are just as common as one another. Like, there's no priority or anything like that. The second is sort of your mums and dads who maybe have their own home already, that are looking to purchase their first or maybe second investment property. And then you've got, you know, your single people or your families that got started at a super young age, that, you know, already have a great portfolio, that are just looking to take it to the next level as well. So hopefully trying to piece a bunch of different things together to make it a little bit more, I don't know, a bit clearer as to what we should be focusing on next.
You know, I think that's so important, man. Like, the number one thing I think that all of us in our 30s want, now that I'm there, is choices. It's like, you've done your 20s and you've either had a really fun time. Hopefully we've all had a good time in our 20s.
Still having a good time.
You've worked really hard in your 20s, and you've set yourself up, or you're on your way to setting yourself up. Now, as you come into your 30s, it's kind of like, fuck, like, I had a really good time, but I don't want to smash piss every single weekend anymore. Or I worked really hard and I got really serious in my 20s, and now it's like, whoa, like, hang on, like, there's way more to life, and you find your way back to yourself again. So where I think I want to be as a 30-year-old in the future is, by the time my children finish high school, absolute vision in your 30s should be to be financially free before or by that point.
I love that.
So that you can just have choices for the rest of your life. Once you've got kids that aren't 100% relying on you every day for survival, and you can live your best life and your purpose at that time, but enjoy the entire journey through.
And that gives you a good amount of time, right? You know, if you got kids that are under the, what, 6? Is it 6 around Australia that you start school now?
Yeah, 5, 6, yeah.
5, 6, yeah, cool. So you're giving like a sort of a, you know, 12 to 16 year time frame there for the average person. And I think that's long enough for the average person to still get there. You know, some people are trying to rush and get this done in, you know, a couple of years or 5 years, and, you know, that's not our vibe. Like, we are more like, let's just enjoy our life. Let's have choices and happiness and freedom throughout the journey, but still get to the end result. Well,
I did rush it. Like, I was one of those people that's like, fuck yous all, I'm getting there in 5 years. 11 years ago. And I'm still figuring, like, plotting my way through, but I do have a clear plan, which we'll talk about more. I do have a couple of different ideas, which we'll definitely share in this podcast as well, about how you can not make the mistakes that I made and more go for, like, Simon's path, which is plan strategy first, and then the execution and next steps are just so simple because of that.
Yeah, and obviously things are going to change throughout that journey as well, and you've got to be fluid with that. Different things are certainly going to come up. 15 years, my gosh, like so much is going to change over that period of time. So, hopefully these strategies, provide the average family, the average person with a bit more choices throughout that, just in case, things don't go to plan.
Now, I wasn't sure how to talk through what I wanted to talk through today, because there's a next step, which is and there's a few different ideas for that we have. And then there's also the plan that's going to get you to financial freedom through property over that period of time. Now, in the past, I would have always gone to bigger picture, but I just feel like everybody listening to this understands that the market is heading in the right direction at the moment.
Yeah.
That the next 5 or 6 years, according to the people that we follow, looks semi-stable.
Amazing.
Every single year there'll be something that freaks people out. Every single year there'll be a reason to not take action. I get it.
Yeah.
But in general, we're moving into the second half of the cycle, which for a little while before it gets bad looks really nice.
Yeah, so there's sort of 3 different options that we love to look at. For us, we specialise up here in southeast Queensland, Brisbane in particular at the moment. And there's 3 really awesome options up here that we sort of want to unpack in a little bit more detail. And this is what we're helping people like you purchase every single week.
And so the next step for me is one of these, but we'll talk about them. So different people come to us for completely different reasons, right?
Yeah. Everyone's got a different risk profile. Everybody's got a different budget. Everybody's got different goals that they're looking to achieve. And you've got to make the strategy work for you as an individual, because it's no one size fits all.
For sure. So one of the ones that I like at the moment is in a particular part of Brisbane. If you compare that part of Brisbane that close to the city compared to other parts of the city that are that close, or even Sydney's, Melbourne's, Perth's even, Adelaide's even, some of these suburbs have just massively, massively underperformed. So one of the options would be to go buy a 450 to 500k home, but there's properties in Brisbane still between 300 and 450 that we're buying every single day of the week. So it's really a 350 to about a 500k purchase.
Yeah, and most people that I talk with are setting that budget, right? They're sort of somewhere between $400,000 and $700,000. That's the average, especially for the people in their 30s that I talk with.
For sure. And so that option looks like close to the city, connected with great roads or trains, close to major shopping centres, surrounded by quality schools, nice, quiet, leafy suburbs with good infrastructure, good parks, good access to Brisbane, Gold Coast, jobs.
Yep.
And then, very low vacancy rates, extremely easy to find a tenant. And so let's say that option looks like a nice big 600 square metre block with a 3 or a 4 bedroom home, couple of bathrooms, 1 or 2 car parking spaces, and you go buy it for 450k, which I think you just basically did.
Yeah, and what I love about these, I've literally just bought exactly that, 3 bed, 1 bar, 700 block, nice, quiet, family friendly, wide street, right by the school, walking distance to the shopping centre, great location, but literally 5 to 10 kilometres up the road, properties are selling for $550,000 to $650,000. So, what we love about this is just trying to identify that ripple effect, just that little bit further away, but still great demographics, still great school districts, still all of those fundamentals, all of those key performance indicators that we want, but just more affordable and better rental yields.
I know your property, right? There's some suburbs around the city that have literally gone up by 8% a year for the last 10 years. And then you get to where Simon's just picked up and you're talking about 1.5% gain, maybe 2% gain per year for 10 years. So it's coming off a very low base. And on top of that, what did you just rent yours out for? Was it $460 a week?
I got $430 for that.
$430 a week. Cool.
Yeah.
So it's
but that was for me, it was a super low maintenance property. So the bathroom had just been renovated. They'd just done all of the cosmetic work. So I paid a premium to get that low maintenance property, but it's still a 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom house, right? So it's only going to get the rent of a 3 bed, 1 bath house.
For sure. And so, that's a nice option. Now, what that option looks like to me is if the rent returns $430 a week today, with a 2.5% increase for the next 15 years, you're looking at probably, I don't have the compound growth calculator in front of me, but at least $600 a week.
Oh, at least. It'd be closer to 7.
You know, I think that the rent returns are actually going to massively outpace. Like, I was looking at some SQM data, and rent returns in Brisbane have literally gone up by 10% in the year. Like, they're going up way quicker than the 2.5 a year at the moment.
Yeah, they are. And you look at, you know, comparable areas in, say, Sydney, you know, people are paying today like 700 plus for the exact same.
And comfortably affording it down there.
Same house.
So it's like, you know, and then the property that goes up by 4.8% a year for 15 years that you bought for $450 is now worth $900K. And so that's a really good option to set up a foundation, to get a good quality property with strong cash flow that you can slowly pay down the debt on over that period of time, and, you know, set yourself up and the family up in a really positive way. Yeah,
and the good thing about these types of options is, you know, the average family is putting sort of a, you know, somewhere between a $60,000 to $80,000 deposit on that. So your debt is only in your, you know, 360s to 380s or something like that. And with the interest rates where they're at the moment, and with the rental yields where they're at, put you in a good cash flow position as well. So what I wanted to do with this is just a nice stock standard, low maintenance property that I didn't have to think about. I can just set and forget that one now, and then focus on my other portfolio, my next steps basically.
For sure. Now, I think, you know, for some people out there in their 30s, they're like 450 to 500 feels like a nice budget. For other people, you know, I know there's a lot of you guys listening that are absolutely balling. Great incomes, great combined incomes, huge equity, good businesses, great savings. Like, I've worked with at least 10 people this year that are earning between $500,000 and $5 million a year. Like, there's some people with cash out there, and then there's a lot of people earning a couple $100,000 to $300K that have all of a sudden coming back into the market, where for years and years and years we found a lot of first timers earning that more 50 to 60K. Now it's like, those smart people start moving their money into the market when inflation is starting to kick in, because they know that they can't have savings in the bank over the next few years.
And this is sort of more in line with what you've done as well. So, you know, this next option that we're talking about is sort of getting closer to the city or closer to the beaches in those more premium blue chip suburbs that do come at a higher entry price, but you're going to get much higher quality demographics, much higher quality tenants in your property, and maybe some stronger capital growth over the longer term.
You know, so there's so many different parts of the city of Brisbane that we really like, and we're not going to get into that because this is more investing in your 30s. But what this option looks like for those of you that can stomach it or afford it, that aligns with your long-term plan, is maybe spending between $600K and $800,000 or $1 million, and going for blue chip. Like, I'm talking in Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, walking distance to the city
or beach,
or the beaches, really high quality areas, good infrastructure. Not walking distance to the city. I'm like
that's probably about $3 million in Brisbane nowadays.
Dude, sorry, I just
Kangaroo Point. I would love to be able to afford properties in Kangaroo Point, but I can't.
Get a little unit or something.
Maybe when I'm in my 60s.
But, like, you know, that vibe of just going for the quality. So going for the high quality suburb with the better school districts, with the better quality infrastructure, the better
higher
quality
incomes,
shopping centres, you know, lower vacancy rates, better rent returns as well. Now, there's a few of these areas that I'm thinking of at the moment, around the beachside suburbs of Brisbane, for example, where, you know, these suburbs again they just haven't had that ripple effect yet. And so they're sitting at such a low base price point compared to your Sydneys, your Geelongs, your Wollongongs, your Melbournes, you know, your Newcastles, or even your Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast. And it's like, when they're sitting at 30 or 20 cents in the dollar in comparison, I just can't see better value buying at the moment if you can afford to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, there's always going to be that trade-off there. And, you know, generally when you're paying that higher price, especially in Brisbane, well, most capital cities, the rental yield isn't going to be as strong. But, you know, this strategy, as Ben was saying, is, you know, more suited to those higher income earners that do have a little bit more money, that maybe want some negative gearing or something like that. But the good thing is, with this, there is still some, like, currently, as we speak, amazing rental yields in these areas as well, like around 4 to 4.5% sometimes. But it's just important to understand that there's always going to be a little bit of a trade-off. You know, for me, going for a more affordable property, I'm probably not going to get as much capital growth as these blue chip options. But those people going for blue chip probably aren't going to get a strong cash flow.
Exactly. So when I think about my next purchase, it's probably going to be around that 700K mark. It's definitely going to be walking distance to the beach on a nice big 600 or 700 square meter block with a really high quality, large brick and tile home.
20, 30 Ks from the city.
That I can, hold for now and then clean up before I sell it in the future whenever that time comes. Now, if I spend 700K on that purchase, I'm expecting at least 620 to 30 a week right now in some of the suburbs. But if I was spending that same 700 in other suburbs of the city, I might only be getting that 450 to 500 a week. So I love beaches. I truly believe that is the lifestyle that Australians want in the future, and I think that's where the value is going to lie.
And people moving to Australia, right? Like, most people that are coming over from North America or Asia or Europe or something like that, you come to Australia for the lifestyle, and
Completely.
that beach lifestyle, like that's what is promoted when you see Australian ads.
Completely. And if, the Australian government we know is aiming for 60 million Australians in 50 or 60 years, and 80% or 75% of that growth is going to be Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane.
Mm-hmm.
That's a significant amount of people, like almost 45 million people wanting to live between the Sunshine Coast and Tassie. It's big, it's huge, and it's exciting for the people that realise what that's going to do to long-term prices, especially once they lend to investors again, to self-managed super funds and the international speculators that want to get in on Australia that can't at the moment.
Yeah, there's some very interesting things coming ahead. And the third one is, a bit of a more unique, maybe a value add strategy that we like to talk about. Ben's currently got some of these properties in his portfolio. I'll have, a couple of these in my portfolio longer term as well. And it's the idea of a dual income or a multiple income property. So what we like here is just, sort of replicating a similar strategy to what I've just personally done, sticking around that sort of $350,000 to $650,000 range, nice quality single income home, but targeting that in a location where you can potentially add a secondary dwelling like a granny flat in the backyard and rent them both out. Because this is a really strong cash flow play. Once I do this on one of my properties, I should be able to get around a 6 to 7% yield, whilst also being in the third largest capital city in Australia, which is, very, very uncommon.
It's crazy. Like, it's something that you used to be able to do in Sydney and parts of New South Wales, like Wollongong and Newcastle, maybe 10 years ago. When you could buy a house for 600K and rent it for 600 a week, and then build a granny flat for 150K that rents for 400 a week. But now that the house is worth $1 million and the granny flat's worth 200K, and the rent return's still only, $1,000 a week, it just doesn't look as attractive down there. So in Brizzy right now, in very specific parts of the city, there's a good opportunity there to, let's say, buy a house for 450 that rents for 430 a week.
Yep.
And then build a granny flat for 160, 170K once you factor in infrastructure charges and concrete and extra carports and all the stuff the councils want.
Basically everything, 170A.
At the moment, that's where it is. Like, the build's cheap. It's just all of this other stuff that they're asking for up here at the moment.
But you're still getting, 310 to 320 on that minimum. 170 grand. So, if I were to do that, I'm into the property for $620,000, but I'm going to be getting a $750 a week rental return.
Which is incredible. And then after you talk to your tax depreciation specialist and your accountant, because it's brand new granny flat, you get some benefits there, which are really nice to have as well. But that's a strategy for certain people that can stomach that. Sometimes building's a bit uncomfortable. Sometimes working through all the council stuff can be uncomfortable for people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be expensive, like, to do that as well, because they want a deposit for the home and then a deposit for the granny flat. But I think it can be a really good option. Like, I love this strategy personally, and I think the window where this can work at an affordable level in the parts of Australia where you can do it is closing and closing and closing. And I think that's why I've sort of jumped into this, and that's why Simon's bought some properties that he'll do the same thing to over time.
Yeah, but as the values of the properties increase and the value of and the cost of construction increases, so the total project cost is going to get higher, but the rental return is going to be similar. So it just won't stack up as well in the future, but it is a good opportunity now. And, I really like this as an opportunity for those, more risk-averse investors that, may only look at purchasing one or maximum two investment properties over their entire journey. Because you do get such strong cash flow from it, it can be a really good option for those people. Whereas, if you're somebody that's like, well, I love property and I'm just learning right now, but I intend to buy, 3, 4, maybe even 5 properties over my journey, it's like, I really like the first two options that we've talked about, because you could potentially exposing yourself to a greater number of properties that are going to be compounded in capital growth.
For sure. Like, I've talked to one of the boys in our team who's an ex-accountant, and, in terms of what's going to create wealth over time, obviously the more assets and the more value in the market times by whatever the average capital gain is on the property, the better off you'll be financially. And then there's investors that, as you said, just aren't interested in going that far.
Yeah.
And that's completely cool as well. And so there's different strategies that we help people implement based on their risk profile, their goals, their financial position, and what they're looking to achieve. And, that's the beautiful thing. I started with lots of like the single income properties. Then I went through a phase where I really liked the dual stuff, and now I've gone back to single income. There's just so many ways to do it, and as you learn more and grow as an investor in your 30s and really put in the time to learn the stuff and then apply it, you can make better and better decisions as that compound effect of these decisions stack up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in your 30s is really where people start to figure shit out. You're starting to figure life out. Every single person that I've talked to in their 30s that's had a baby, their mindset, their priorities, their values have completely changed. So, things are gonna change throughout that period, but it's where you really gonna want to start thinking about different things. And I think these are just 3 rock solid opportunities to go out for that, are going to help a bunch of different people in a bunch of different circumstances currently, but still get you to where you want to be in the future. So I guess, why don't we break down a couple of those longer term ideas now with these strategies?
Yeah, it's nice to know what your immediate next step is, but for me, it's really important to connect that next step to where you want to be in 15 to 30 years from today. And, I find a lot of my friends and the people that I care about are either really good at seeing where they want to be and really bad at taking any meaningful action to get there, or
100%.
really, really, really good at doing the next step but have no idea how it's connecting. And because there's no connection between where they are in the bigger picture, the next steps
they change
all over the shop versus just the straighter line. So for me, there's just 2 what we would call like bigger picture ideas around this.
And these are to replace sort of 100K worth of income, give or take, maybe 90, maybe 110.
Completely. Over that period of time that your kids are in school, like around about 15 years or whatever it's going to take, I think my kids, based on their ages, will be going through school for 20 years. So I've got a bit more time to sort of work through this than other people might.
Yeah.
But, one idea is you accumulate 3 homes. Let's say the homes are worth $500,000 each. Now, I'm not saying some of you are in a position, like I've got a client I spoke to yesterday, he's like, Ben, I want to buy 4 houses this year. I've got another client who we're looking to buy 10 with this year. I've got another client that literally bought 1 6 years ago that we just heard from again that's ready to do the next step because they've got some equity and they've saved some money over that time. So it is not a sprint, but let's just say that the strategy is you buy 3 high quality properties close to the city, not that far from the beach, over a period of 2 to 5 years. And, that accumulation phase that we call, which is the buying phase, is really the hardest part in the sense that you're saving, you're sacrificing a bit of your lifestyle, you're planning. It's stressful because you're working with solicitors and accountants and mortgage brokers all the time. But it is really, once you've got that foundation set, you can really just take the gas off, and you've just got through that.
Yeah, like
absolutely.
My shift in stress, I guess, has completely changed since purchasing that last foundational property, because now I know 30 years P&I, 100% I'm going to be financially free, and it's such a freeing feeling. But I want to speed that up. I want to turn that 30 into 15 or potentially even into 10. We'll see what happens. And it's an unbelievable feeling. Like it's just, there's that certainty that I know I'm going to get to where I want to be in the future. So
I love that, man.
yeah.
I'm so stoked for you, dude.
Yeah, it's sick, hey. But like, once you've got the foundations, then it's time to start having these discussions with your accountants and figuring out, okay, well, P and I will own this outright in 30 years, and at that point in time, you'll be financially free. But we can all do better than that.
Yeah, we want to do better than that. So it's like, just before we get to how we pay them off, because I think that's so important, and like to just show people how simple it is to work off the debt.
Yeah.
But like, let's say that you've got these 3 houses worth 1.5 mil, 15 years time with your little 4.8% return compounded a year.
Now let's just touch on that. Like 4.8%, we just like to be super conservative and, run our numbers on a conservative level. But if you look at Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane over the last 50 years, they've all done over 9% return on average. Now I'm not expecting that to continue in the future, but you look at the last 20 years, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne and Perth have all done over 6% on average as well. So 4.8 is pretty conservative, but it still enables you to double your money.
Completely. So your $1.5 million in 15 years time, you've got $3 million worth of property, which is incredible. You're absolutely going to be a millionaire if you work off the debt in 15 years time. And that, isn't the reason, but it's nice to do that as well. And then I'm just going to round up. I'm going to say $500 a week rent for each of the 3 properties, just because $1,500 is easy to do the math on, times by the rent increasing just by 2.5% a year for 15 years, even though it's increasing much faster than that at the moment because of inflation, and I think it's going to continue to for 3 years or so before supply comes in to match the demand we've got.
Yeah, well, as property values are going up, rental yields are going to come because there's less people that can afford to buy a home, so they need to rent. More demand for the rent's going to go up.
Exactly. And so, I don't have, again, the mini web tool that I love to use on Google, but
it's about just over $2,000.
Yeah, we're going to be getting it $2,000 a week times 50 weeks a year is $100,000 a year of income. Now, you could just do as Simon said, like once you've set that up, knowing that you're going to have $2,000 a week of income, $100,000 a year, and $3 million worth of asset, if all things work out in favor, which they may or may not. And then it's like, well, one strategy is you just pay principal and interest. You've got it set up, and you know that by the time you're 60 or 70, you're completely sorted.
Yeah.
But there's some other ideas that we have for paying off debt based on conversations with my accountant and just ourselves and our team. And
you're going to keep working over that 15 years. Your kids are in school, you've got bills to pay, you've got purpose, you've got value to add to the world. Like you're going to keep working over that journey. But because you've got your foundations and you're no longer saving to invest in more real estate, there's other ways that you can allocate those funds to wipe down the debt a bit quicker.
For sure. Now, P&I is one way to do it, which the banks love. Another way is as the rent increases slowly over time and the debt decreases, there's going to become a surplus. And you can allocate that surplus or that passive income from that property. Instead of pocketing it or spending it, you can just put it straight off the debt. Now, I'm not talk to your accountant about the best way to do that. Maybe it's offsetting it, maybe it's paying it off the home loan. That's up to you guys to discuss. Another thing that I like to do is, like, most properties that I own get some form of tax benefit through the tax depreciation report that I give to my accountant. So if you do get some sort of tax benefit back on your wage, use that money again to either offset it or pay it directly off the home loan.
Yeah. And then your surplus savings as well, because most people are putting away a decent percentage of their income to get the foundations built. Now, once you've done that, maybe you want to increase your lifestyle a little bit and, start doing things to enjoy your life a bit more because you've obviously worked so hard to get to where you are, but you're still going to continue saving and using that extra savings. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 50, maybe it's $100,000 per year that you can then pay off the debt on the properties. And as Ben said, whichever way you choose to do it, offsetting it or paying off the debt, however however suits you best.
You know, there are a few really simple ideas that you can do. Now, only one of those ideas is using your active income. The other's using tax, the rent from the property, you know, etc. to work it down. So, you know, they're the simplest things that you can do. And based on modelling it with a few of my engineer mates, like, I think that by just doing those simple things and paying $100 or $200 off each property per week, if you can afford to do it, is going to get you very, very close to debt-free in 15 to 20 years anyway. And then there's like, you know, some of us that want to get there a little bit sooner than that. And it's like, well, what if you bought a fourth property and sold it in 15 years?
Yeah.
What if you invested in some stocks?
Yeah.
You know, talk to your financial advisor about that. And, you know, whatever you made over that period, you paid off debt with. What if you know, both just committed to like working a little bit harder, and instead of transitioning after you've bought the 3 properties from putting, you know, 20% of your wage or 50% of your wage to, you know, saving the deposits for the properties, you just continue to chunk that in and chip away at it. So there's so many different ways to get there, but having a plan and a process is the number one thing that I think 99% of people are missing. Like, most of us can easily do P&I.
Yeah.
But not many people are implementing those other super simple things.
Yeah, we'll definitely be leveraging off the market, investing to speed that process up. And that's what's going to be the big ticket item, because, you know, over 15 years, if you can get a great return, you know, there's potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars that you can use to pay off some of that debt as well. So
completely,
I like that. And then, you know, you've got your other option as well, which is sort of our 2 properties to financial freedom strategy, which we've done podcasts on, we've done videos on. We've helped a lot of people execute strategies similar to this, which is very similar to what Ben's just talked about, except only purchasing 2 properties, but ensuring that those 2 properties are in areas where you can legally add a granny flat in the backyard and rent it out completely separately. So, you know, let's say you replicate something similar to me, purchasing that property around $450K, building your granny flat for around $170, so you're into it for $620, and then getting that rental return of around $700 to $750 a week in rent, closer to $750 based on the current market conditions. You know, having 2 of those assets in the portfolio, so what are we talking that? $1.24 million worth of property value, and then you've got about $1,500 a week of rental income again. Now, you know, using these same tools, a 4.8% increase, you know, in 15 years, you're going to turn that 1.2 mil into about 2.4. So, you know, that's why there's a bit of a difference between the 3 property and the 2 property strategy. Obviously, you get an extra 600 plus K worth of, you know, asset value longer term by the 3rd property, which is massive to so many people. But, you know, some people are only earning 100K combined income for their family, and you know, it does take a little bit longer. So I love this option for those families as well. And the best thing about that strategy as well is how positive cash flow it is throughout that journey as well. Because you are getting $750 on your 620K, you know, when those interest rates do come up, or, you know, when different things happen, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to hold and sustain those properties throughout that journey. So really clear plan, but once again, that $1,500, same, we're talking about the exact same numbers here, so it should equate to just over $2,000 per week in about 15 years time. But with this one, you've only got $1.3 million worth of property value to pay off, so, you know, a little bit less debt to work with over the longer term.
You know, one thing we didn't touch on, which I think is, you know, so important, man, and we did touch on it recently in another app, is, you know, in your 30s, I think you start to figure out a little bit more of who you want to be, your values a little bit more, or your life changes to the point where your values just are in your face. Your children, or your partner, or your career, or investing to become financially free. And the cool thing about establishing the portfolio in a shorter window, because a lot of people will accumulate 2 or 3 properties over a lifetime, and that's cool if you want to work for 45 years doing it that way. But if you can, like a lot of our clients do, condense that buying cycle into maybe 2 to 5 years and accumulate your 2 or your 5 or 3 properties, over that period of time, then once it's been bought and once you've got it set up safely and once you've got your buffers in place to protect you in a bad market, you can really start to think, and I think a lot of people in their 30s are doing one of two things. They're either thinking about what they're passionate about and what they want to really be doing, and they're going for it, and they're retraining, and they're moving once they've set something like this up, because as you said, like in the future, you're set up anyway. Yeah. So it's like you may as well like
do what you
risk it and change careers and go for what you want. Or I've got so many friends that I know that are just head down in their 30s. They're not investing. They're building a career in something they may or may not even like. And it's like, for those people who haven't invested, which is so many of us, like most of our clients don't even start till 40, 45, by the way. So anyone starting in their 20s or 30s is amazing. 10, 15, 20 years ahead of everyone else in Australia.
Yeah.
But we're having high level, heavy combo right now. Like, I know you guys are listening and watching this because you want more for your life than the average, the same as we do.
Exactly.
Financially, health-wise, relationships-wise, you want it. And so we're talking about how
you can have it.
But, the beautiful thing about setting this up is if you really dislike what you are doing, change.
You can change. And we've had heaps of people do it. Haydo, one of the boys that worked with us, he lived in regional South Australia and was stacking shelves in a Woolworths before he moved up to the sunny coast, and he still managed to set up his foundations and still managed to set up his portfolio, and he's just absolutely smashed it.
Yeah.
And then he set them up and was like, well, I want a lifestyle change, so I'm going to move states. I'm going to move to a place that is more in line with my values and the lifestyle that I want to be leading. We've worked with people that were FIFO workers that just got stuck in FIFO, the incomes that you earn for way longer than they were hoping to, but they've set this portfolio up and finally had the confidence to transition back to where they want to live. And they're making choices for themselves as opposed to making choices out of necessity just to, keep doing what you think is right.
I've seen people like double down on work once they've achieved this and gone, shit, like if I work really focused for 10 years, I'll be done.
Most people aren't even in their peak earning potential until your 40s as well. So
even
like
50s, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so there's so many different ways to do it. I've seen people retrain. I've seen them cut back at work. I've seen them bail into caravans or around the world for a year. Like there's so many options, but options is important. And I see a lot of people in their 30s, like a lot of people in the last year that I've bumped into at school or outside of school at sport and stuff with the kids that are like, they are just trying to run away from their life in their 30s. And it's like, I get it, the pressure of work, the pressure of home, the monotony of the day-to-day life, not being able to go anywhere at night, midweek. Like it's just this only being able to do stuff on school holidays. It's like, it's a tough period. And so many people, instead of going, how can we use this period where we're stable, for the first time in our lives since we were kids, we're truly stable, to just set ourselves up? But so many people run, but when they run back, they've got no money, they've got no assets, and they've got all of the same problems ahead of them, but they're years further down the line, which means they've got to work for longer to creep it back. And I'm just like, you can enjoy the journey all the way through, but you can so easily with a single income of 70, 80K a year. I've got a client that we're working with at the moment that's earning 50. I worked with a guy a couple of years ago, Fishroom, that was literally like picking up rubbish in South Bank in Brisbane, who had moved over from Africa not speaking English and literally was like a refugee that had saved a deposit through driving taxis at night and doing that all day, and bought his first property. Now he bought it at a time when other people weren't thinking about this area, and he's made 100, 150 grand of equity already. And it's like, he just wants to set his family up. Like anything can happen. I've seen it all.
I think the thing that, people that actually take action, like one of the assets that they have in their personality type is the fact that they've got a much longer term vision of their life and themselves, which is really important. But if you've just got such a short term outlook, you're only looking the next week, the next month, the next year, then
you can't get out of survival living like that.
Yeah. So if you have that longer term outlook and you're like, well, look, I've got, 2, 3 kids as you said, 20 years before your youngest is going to be finishing school. That's a long time, but you are in a safe, stable place. You know, you're forced to live in the one location because that's where your kids are going to school. You need to obviously have a job to support that family as well. So like, just understanding that there is a lot of years ahead of you to execute this, and just rather than trying to have it all now, slowly but surely ticking these goals off and accumulating that portfolio, and then slowly but surely reducing the debt. You know, you don't need to pay off $500,000 worth of debt in one chunk. You can just pay off, 50 grand per year over a longer period of time and still get the same result.
Absolutely, man. Like, we, think it's just so simple now, but it's only simple because we've spoken to 3,000 people, we've inspected thousands of properties, we've talked to thousands of agents, we've read the books, we've listened to the podcasts, and through all that noise, we've found a clear path. Now, the path is decide that you want to do it, create a plan with your financial advisor, your accountant, with your friends, or your partner, or on your own, that works for you with your own risk profile that feels safe and secure and exciting. And then one step at a time, save the money or buy the property. Save the money, buy the property, save the money, buy the property. And when the work's done, know that it's done and naturally transition into the next point without chasing what you've done, because there's a lot of effort and energy involved in the first part, and that effort and energy can carry through into the next part. But the next part is not that. It is chilling out, slowing down, enjoying, knowing that everything's going to be okay. Or if you want to be a baller, like, keep rolling at whatever you want to do. Like, that's up to you. Half our clients want simplicity. Half our clients want to be worth tens of millions of bucks. And it's like, wherever you sit on that spectrum, do you.
Yeah, do you. I love it, man.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I hope there's some little pieces of gold in here. I hope all we really want is people to have the confidence to just take that next step, regardless of where you're at in this journey. And I think backing yourself and having that confidence that it can all work out. Even if you can't see the forest through the trees yet, it can. You will get to that point. You've worked through some pretty gnarly mental issues over the years and still been able to get through it. We've seen so many of our clients that have just been dealt such a shit deck of cards, but still figured it out. And life is full of change and adversity, and I really think it's the ones that can adapt to that change and continue moving forward that end up being the ones that get to have a happy life and achieve all of their goals.
It's not easy when you're single and you're trying to save and build a career and pay and train and have fun. It's not easy when you're a young family at home with the kids and you've got one income or 1.5 incomes or 2 incomes and the kids are in daycare and you're just exhausted. It's not easy to be, to have started in your 20s and to already have a heap of runs on the board by the time you're hitting your 30s, and the exhaustion of that. But it's also much easier to make 30 minutes a week to listen to something like this, to make 30 minutes a month to identify on your own or with your partner what your next step looks like. It's much easier to do this over the next 2 to 5 or 10 years than it is to
have it
trade
now.
45 years of your life, or to try and do it this year, because it's just not going to happen. I think I've worked with one person legitimately that made it all happen in 3 years, and he was just lucky enough to get into the Bitcoin space as a mathematician 3.5 years ago. He's the only person I've spoken to where he legitimately got 100% financially free properly for life, and was smart enough to know what to do with the money after, which he's pulled it out and he's putting it into other assets now. It just doesn't work. From 3,000 people, I've never seen it take less than 5 years.
That's 3,000 people that you've talked to, but let alone the books that you've read, the movies that you've watched, the podcasts that you've listened to, people that you talk to in your normal life, all of those different things. So it's far greater than that. And I think the society that we live in, they kind of make it out that you can have it all now and that you should have it all now. With the movies that we watch, the TV shows that we watch, it's painting a false picture of the reality of life. And, taking a step back and having a bit more of a bigger picture view definitely helps.
Completely. So, we wish you guys all the best. I suppose there's two things you can do now. One option is to
subscribe to the podcast and listen to more.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. But one option is to just continue learning, growing, and get out there with confidence and smash it yourself. The other option is for a small number of people that we help each month. We do offer strategy sessions at www.pumpedonproperty.com. Jump over and click the free strategy session button. We can talk about where you are, where you'd like to be in the future. We can also give you some really good ideas about the market, and then you can take that, absolutely smash it on your own. We love hearing and seeing people doing that. Like I recently did an event in Sydney and Melbourne, not recently, about a year and a half ago, and there would have been 60, 80 people in each of the rooms that were just like through the channels and stuff that wanted to come say hello, and I was blown away. Like there were definitely clients there, but so many people like, man, I just took your ideas, they're so simple, and I smashed it.
Yeah.
I've done exactly what you boys talk about in Queensland, in Melbourne or Geelong or WA or Adelaide or Hobart, and I'm there. I've done it.
Yeah, it's so nice to hear that sort of feedback. So there's that option.
Yeah. Or there's the option to like get some support, and like, I tried to bump and figure my way all the way through because I had no idea, and like I couldn't connect the dots at that time, where Simon, because like he had a clear plan and we talked a lot about his strategy, has been able to like work things through in a much more systematic, straightforward way, and he's got much better outcomes on all of his properties. And then he's like taken what he's learnt from me and taken it to the next level in his own life and made ridiculous decisions based on a good foundation of information. And we want that for you guys. Like we really want you to use your 30s to set it up.
Hell yeah.
And then enjoy it for the rest of your life, because it is a short life, and you could be halfway through, you could be a third of the way through at 30. It's like, make the most of it, and making the most of it comes back to choices. And when you don't have the financial stress or the fear response all the time because you're always thinking day to day, everything starts to change for the positive.
I love it, bro. I love it, man. Thanks for sharing heaps of those like awesome insights, and
cheers.
Let's see what happens. Hopefully I get to chat to a few of you guys, and if you have already kind of kicked it off from this, I'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, info@pumpedonproperty, and let us know what you've done or how it's helped, because there's so many people out there that are just fucking crushing it.
We love it. Like we're trying to create a community of like just positive stuff where you can honestly share stories. Like you look at the YouTube stuff, the Instagram, the Facebook stuff, like put what you're up to. Like I get inspired hearing it, reading it. Like
so motivating.
Often like even though I've been doing stuff, I hit plateaus or walls or exhaustion, or I just like want to take a bit of time off it to enjoy. And it's like the inspiration of just hearing what others are up to, it's so inspiring. Like seeing what you've done in the last couple of years, man, it just like gives me fuel, and what so many of our clients have done that are so much further than I was ever expecting to go.
Yeah, it's really nice, hey?
Yeah.
You just got to get started.
Cheers, guys. Well, wish you all the best. Enjoy the journey, and can't wait to hear from you soon.
Oh, sweaty. So sweaty.